Perfect.
Hey, everybody.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. How's the mood here? It's been a long day. Welcome, and we will talk about Switzerland. No, like it's probably a little bit hard to pronounce, but we are a Zhuzalu Swiss node, so we're trying to establish Zhuzalu community in Switzerland. And who doesn't know, like raise hands, whoever here know what Zhuzalu is?
Yes.
Masa. Yeah, so good amount of people. But we give a short intro, like what Zhuzalu is. It's a network state experiment started by Vitalik in Montenegro first, more than a year ago, and it has been evolving over 1.5 years into a pop-up city movement all over the world. Actually, it went through a little decentralization period, where in the beginning it was one event, and now it's actually many hubs all over the world. And because of that, me and Isla picked up randomly and with a lot of passion that we want to build one in Switzerland because we loved it, our experience, and we love the community. We think that it could provide even more fundamental change to the Swiss ecosystem. So we're very hyped about it, and hope you're also hyped after our presentation. And basically, that was the background why it's ready to launch network state experiments, because network state, as you all know, it's kind of the hype movement in the last 2 years. And there's a lot of things happening in, for example, Prospera, and a lot of different form of network states has been happening. And I personally think Zhuzalu is, and also Switzerland, is standing in a very interesting spot inside this whole network state experiment. And we started off as like a long-term kind of residency and friends coming together, but there's kind of, everyone felt that there's a magic sauce that no one wants to leave, and everyone wants it to happen again. And we also could see a longer-term impact that people brought back this passion back to where their country and also their tech developed, and community keep building forward. So we want to know that, okay, what is this magic sauce of Zhuzalu, and how can we turn it into more of a movement, and how this fits into a whole network state experiment. And one thing that Vitalik has said was that Switzerland is often considered to be the closest thing the real world has to classical liberal government's utopia. How many Swiss are here? So good. I hope you are as bullish about Switzerland as us, because we're going into full bullish about Switzerland in the next 2 slides, and hope you're on the ride with us. So me and Isla, we personally have been in Switzerland for 8 years, and me personally, my partner is Swiss, and I really love what I've seen in Switzerland. It's actually the first European country experiment for me. I was like in China, and then lived in US for 5 years, and then Switzerland, and we really figured that in Switzerland there's a lot of great things, and it's a good place to, everyone says actually it's a hard place to live. It's a really hard place to live. And we also wonder, like, what is really special for Switzerland? And when we want to build a special node in Switzerland, we want to know that why is it different, why people want to come to Switzerland compared to other places, because globally there's a lot of different kind of Zhuzalu node. For example, Montenegro, for example, there were Georgia, QJ just mentioned, like why we want to build one in Switzerland. And we're building our thesis, want to base on basically the culture of Switzerland, and which a top 3 is Switzerland has the culture technology that basically we call like superior social technology, the coordination, the decentralized coordination that seems like has been worked, and have really sovereign state that coordinate really well and have autonomy, but at the same time on a federal level also have like a per se like a greater coordination that move the country with a Swiss identity, basically. And it's democracy, you know, the 7 seats, and you know, like no per se the neutrality strategy, and like rotating of 7 presidents, and the president. I think everyone knows that. Probably you've seen news that you can see the president on the street in a random event and take a photo with him, and he doesn't seem like any president that come with red carpet, and you know the whole no charade like any other country. And also, we personally, for example, have relationship with SwissNext. I don't know if you know. It posts us like a very low-key educational front, but actually everywhere that the SwissNext office all over the world is actually diplomacy, Swiss territory. So they're very, I think Swiss is really good at really tune down their policy and having this front as a neutral place in the world. So we do think that there's a lot to learn, like on this neutrality and a place for that global dialogue. And secondly, decentralization by default. Like when me and Isla are all very deep in DAOs, and we did DAO Swiss together before and still in DAO Swiss. And we think like, okay, like everyone, when we talk about DAO, after so many years of doing DAO, now we're thinking like, oh, what is DAO really decentralized? Some DAOs actually are not. And then and some people ask, is Switzerland the first DAO in the world? Maybe. It's actually decentralized quite by default. Though it didn't come with all the blockchain technology, but it's the governance, how it organizes, having decentralized in its spirit. And also, we see a strong DAC alignment for Swiss culture. I hope you guys know what DAC is. I feel like I throw a lot of words. And DAC is defensive acceleration. It's a way of tech optimism proposed by Vitalik a while ago. Very encourage everyone to check out the article. It's a great write. And basically, it's a great thinking and a theory about how do we accelerate tech, but at the same time, keep a defensive ground. As for in this world now, in the midst of a lot of changing orders in the world, how do we keep a defensive ground while progressing? And we think Switzerland also did a really good job in the past years and remain neutrality. A lot of governmental strategy has been pushing progress, but at the same time could be defense itself quite well throughout World War I, World War II, for example. And then beyond that, more on the tech and innovator side, we do think like Switzerland attracts like global innovations. Some things like people don't think about, oh, San Francisco has, and but actually we do have Crypto Valley, and also Switzerland is the world #1 innovation per capita. So there's a really great output as for innovation and patents and technology. And also built to last, everyone knows the Swiss quality, right? Whenever it's stamped, it probably 30% more price charged as for the marketing. But I do think I had an architecture background, so for me it's very astonishing like how the building here are really long lasting and the quality and the attention to detail. So if you look around, I think Switzerland really have the mentality to build to last, and it has a 700 years history of decentralization, which is the longest in the world. And also it's a talent magnet. I don't need to say too much about that. I think even in the AI front, now a lot of new AI, OpenAI just opened an office, right?
Anthropic as well.
Yeah, Anthropic. Google was here, Apple was here. So it's really a talent magnet. One thing that we do want to make a difference in Switzerland is that we want to see how to make Switzerland basically the barrier a bit lower for talents. Because one thing we do see also in Web3 community is that a lot of talents are coming from everywhere, and Switzerland is expensive. So one thing we do want to tackle, like if you brainstorm with us, like how do we remain a talent magnet, but at the same time lower the barrier and lower the cost for talent to come to Switzerland. And I think here is a good segue. Isla will talk more about the philosophy that we developed and how do we want to achieve basically what we imagined Switzerland and network state experiments in Switzerland.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think Una touched on a really important point, which is that in DAOs, I feel like we had the digital technology, the tech technology, but maybe we were missing a little bit the social technology layer to some degree, and we've started learning, but we're still, from my perspective, not even close to being there. And what our thinking is, and what we suspect, is that there's a lot to be learned from Switzerland in terms of bringing the social technology layer. That over 700 years of doing decentralization and living as a decent scale society in the real world decentralization, that there's a lot to be learned and hopefully transferred from that learning to DAOs and to decentralized organizations and the kinds of things that we in Web3 want to build more of. So that's hopefully one of the key things that we will be able to learn from and bring to Web3, and I'm sure that Web3 also has a lot that it could be doing more to bring real world impact to Switzerland, beyond meme coins. And so we started looking more into Swiss culture. What is it exactly about Swiss culture and the technology that they've built as a psyche and mindset that is actually different? And when we dug into it, we realized that it's actually somewhat similar to DIAC. As Una said, it's kind of, Vitalik wrote all of this about defensive acceleration, and in it he talked a bit about Switzerland, but he didn't go too deep into the detail of the culture. He talked more about the mountains as a defensive side of Switzerland and how that's helped it develop. Our realization was that what DIAC is to some degree is about defending the individual rights, things like privacy, defending things that matter to keep you safe, and accelerating the things that we all want more of as a collective. And we started thinking about cypherpunk or lunarpunk and solarpunk, and how actually cypherpunk and lunarpunk are exactly that. They're more about the individual, more about the private sphere, more about what you need to protect as an individual and the things you want to have for yourself. And lunarpunk is much more, solarpunk is much more about the collective, about what we're achieving together, like the optimistic vision. And at the same time, we were looking at definitions of the state and what does it actually mean to be a network state? What are we actually innovating on here? And at its core, the state is the interface between the individual and society, and building an efficient interface for us to do things together and coordinate together. And a little while after we kind of came up with this, Vitalik actually also wrote another essay on, I think on pluralism was the essay, and he brought up a very similar framework around the yin and the yang, and that you need to protect the individual rights, like the individual right to protest. If you have that, you can protest and you can actually coordinate to protect the autonomy. At the same time, yeah, you need the collective rights to protect the individual rights. So there's an interesting interplay between those things. And that is kind of where we see the secret sauce of Switzerland, is that they've done particularly well at balancing or integrating the individual and the collective, keeping the rights and the freedoms of the individual, while also building something that's really powerful and meaningful, and where society is thriving and innovation is great, and income and wealth is doing well, and the currency is stable. And so diving into that, there's a lot to be learned as a culture. One thing that, as we looked into this, I mentioned it earlier this morning as well, there's this painting. Does anyone know the Gotthard Post painting? Yeah, okay, a couple of people. So the Gotthard Post painting is one of the most famous paintings in Switzerland. I didn't know about it before, but when I started talking about this, a friend, a co-founder, actually sent me this painting. He said the reason this painting is famous is because it's about, it's supposed to be about, or the belief is that it's about the Swiss magic sauce and the Swiss culture of needing to balance caution and progress, and figuring out how to do that as a kind of a conservative agrarian society, but also moving into the industrialization and progress and technology. And it was interesting that this is such a defining painting for Switzerland and such a key thing, and that's exactly what we're talking about with DIAC. So we think there really is a strong correlation here. So why a permanent sandbox for Switzerland with Switzerland? We started looking, as we were kind of like, why should we be building? What is actually needed in terms of change? Why should we be building anything Zuzelu in Switzerland? And what can we really change? And Una touched on it a bit with like, yeah, Switzerland's amazing and many people should probably be building here, but it's also like a lot of teams only come here when they've already raised 10 million and they can afford our crazy prices. So what could we be doing more to bring teams here early? And if we want to learn from Switzerland, we're probably not going to like accelerate Switzerland too much. So the biggest impact we can potentially have is doing more of Switzerland and helping other people adapt and integrate Swiss culture and the cultural technology into other projects. So we have to get them here, we have to build things with them, and we have to do radical innovation. And when we looked into social theory and the theory of change, there's a really amazing paper on free social spaces. So free social spaces you could think of as churches in the south of America before the civil rights movement became this space where people could coordinate and talk about something that was a radical change from wider society. And they were in this free social space protected from the norms of society and were able to bring more radical ideas. Those ideas could be social ideas, they could also be technology ideas. And another example is, say, the French cafes or the Viennese salons that accelerated a certain thought or social movements. And so these free social spaces don't actually have to be physical spaces, but they often are. And what we realized is that having a permanent Zuzelu node in Switzerland allows us to build on the cultural technology, learn from the cultural technology, implement things and experiment, learn from what's already working, learn to coordinate better, experiment with Ethereum-aligned tech, experiment with privacy tech in a small, protected environment, and then scale it up once we, in that kind of niche protected environment, have built something that's working and successful and where people are willing to try it and use it, and then scale that to the real world and to a wider group of people. So that's kind of what we're talking about when we say free social spaces, is develop these radical ideas internally, free of the politics and the wider norms, and then hopefully create radical social and tech innovation as an output. Yeah, we think that Switzerland as a movement has all of the ingredients to actually create this change. So on the one hand, people, so we have an amazing community in Zuzelu and the wider social technology that's being built there. We also have an awesome team and community that we built in our event in September and have been co-designing this with. We have amazing cultural technology in Switzerland and the philosophy that we can learn from there. And the part we're working on but are confident we will have soon is the space and infrastructure to actually build this together in a permanent way and actually have that innovation as an ongoing process. So the way we envision this over the next sort of 5 to 10 years is starting this year with the first major pop-up village or city. That's happening in May. We'll have 150 to 200 pioneer residents, hopefully 500 or so visitors. And we'll use that to think really first principles about what would the ideal space look like, what should ownership look like in that, how do we want to build this, and why do we want to build it the way we want to build it. Once we have the permanent space in place, once we've thought about things in depth, we want to start scaling into this more permanent hub, work with partner institutions and with pioneer residents and start scaling that community, have, say, 10 tech labs working on things like AI, privacy, ZK, biotech, longevity, and really start scaling these ideas in Switzerland. And then the long-term vision to really have a permanent village of people living and working together, ideally having kids and letting them go to kindergarten together, and yeah, having this real hub for tech and innovation in Switzerland done with a DIAC mindset. And kind of touching on this whole thing of Silicon Valley, it's like Silicon Valley is move fast and break things, and I think our idea would be move fast and break less things. So, yeah, we would love to have some of you there, May 1 to 26. We can't disclose the location for security reasons, but we would really love to have you apply. We're on switzerland.ch. You can apply there. It's going to be awesome people if you're interested in working with us and building something along these lines, and we're excited to have you. Yeah. And yeah, you can ping either of us on Telegram, and we'll love to talk. So thank you.
Yeah.